I read what I want, when I want, and how I want. The first sentence in each of these stories is a banger. Hello everybody and welcome back to another vlog. This is the Life Gets Better at 40 vlog. My name is Alicia. I am 41 years old, living in sunny Philly. And in this vlog, we're gonna do a summer reading check-in. So a few vlogs ago, I introduced you guys to my summer archive list. I pulled a bunch of books that I wanted to get through this summer and challenged myself to power through, girl. Let's get back to reading because I'm an avid reader. I've been reading since I was yay high. I have a book tattooed on my arm along with an Octavia Butler quote. I be reading, or I was reading, because I noticed in 2025 that I haven't really been reading as much as I used to. So creating that stack was not about creating some regimen system and you gotta read this book one after the other. It was more about me scanning my bookshelves, seeing what's been on the shelf for a while, what book I should have read a long time ago, but just bringing some structure back to my reading life. And I told you guys in that vlog, and I'm gonna tell you guys again, I knew I wasn't gonna stick to that list. I'm a mood reader. Reading for me is fun. This is not a job. I read what I want, when I want, and how I want. So I knew I was gonna kind of get off track from that list, but this is fun. Nobody's getting a whooping over it, okay? Nobody's getting a ticket. Just read, okay? And that's really what I wanted to challenge and charge myself with, is just getting back to it. So with that said, a couple things sort of influenced me and how I approached that list and how I kind of got away from that list. Two things was I had holds at the library, right? And I know other people are waiting on the books. So I'm like, I'm not gonna keep people waiting, right? Let me get through these books that I have on hold. And then the library also influenced me, which is you go to pick up a hold or you go to drop off a book and you gotta look through the stacks, right? So I'm in there looking through the stacks, swearing I'm not gonna take home another book. And of course I take home another book. So let me know if you do that too. You don't just go to the library and drop off a book, right? You actually go browse because you're already at the library. Why wouldn't you go and see what they got, see what's new? And I ended up picking up a couple books that I had not planned on reading. But let's take a look at my stack. So this is what I've read so far. Actually, it's more than this because I read a book on my Kindle and then I did an audiobook. Altogether, I think we have 7 books. So these are the 7 books that I've read this summer so far. Let's go through them. All right, let's start with the books that were on that stack, were in the stack that I shared from that previous vlog. First book is this Walter Mosley book. Now, I was not expecting traditional romance from Walter Mosley, and I am sorry if you were expecting traditional romance from Walter Mosley, because baby, we were never getting that. Okay, I am a Walter Mosley fan, and he turns these out, baby. So when I heard he was writing a romance novel, I was like, okay, it ain't gonna be that type of romance, and it isn't. But it is very, very beautifully done. One of the things I really enjoyed about this book is that he takes us on a journey to understanding the life of someone who is neurodivergent through the eyes of that person, but also through the eyes of someone who isn't. And so I really appreciated that context in this book. Also, this is a great look at what love looks like outside of the nuclear family. Walter was not just talking about husband, wife, and baby as far as love is concerned. There's a communal aspect to this book that I think is extraordinary. And if I were in a book club, this would definitely be a book club pick. So there we go. The second book I have here is Jesmyn Ward on Witness and Despair. So I'm a Jesmyn Ward stan. If she's writing it, I'm picking it up. I'm also have a bit of bias for writers from the South. And so Jesmyn just does it for me. And this is a collection of her essays, some of which I'd already read. So there was some repetition here. Also, knowing her story, you felt like you were hearing things over and over again with some of these essays because, of course, they were written at a different time. And some of them were like standalone. So, but otherwise, I loved it. I think my favorite essay here was the one about Tallahassee in here. So yeah, I love this. Jesmyn, whatever she's writing, I'm picking up. I said Jesmyn and not Jasmine, right? You guys get me. Okay, this is the case of me just browsing the stacks. I was browsing the stacks and I'm like, oh, this is a Bernice McFadden book that I hadn't read. So this is Camilla's Roses by Bernice McFadden. And I was like, okay, it's pretty short. Like, I could get through this quickly, even though I'm not supposed to be taking any more books home because I was there just to pick up one book from a hold. Bernice didn't waste a page in this book. She didn't waste any dialogue in this book. And what I found particularly interesting about this book is there's some time travel. She opens the story in present day, and then she takes us back through Camilla's life. We don't get back to Camilla in present day until like the last 25 to 30 pages. And it allows us to get a very deep understanding of Camilla's life and what brought her to where she was at in present day. And bravo. This is actually encouraging me to go back and see what other Bernice McFadden books that I haven't read and get to it, because one of the best to ever do it, period. Okay. This is the book that I went to pick up. I went to pick up this book off of a hold, and I ended up getting the Bernice McFadden book. This was a book that was recommended to me. It is a collection of short stories called Make Your Way Home by Carrie R. Moore. I have been on a short story kick. Like, I haven't read a lot this year, but what I've read so far have been quite a few short stories. And here's another thing. I have a bias for writers from the South. And all of the essays within this book are about Black folks living in the South. What struck me about this collection is the first sentence in each of these stories is a banger. It's a banger. I just could not, I was gagged from you sit with that first line in this book. And so if you have not read this collection of short stories, go and pick this up. In fact, I have to return this to the library, but I'm buying this one. Need it in my life. Okay. Here's another bias that I have. This is 54 Miles by Leonard Pitts Jr. The journalist to novelist pipeline, one of my favorite pipelines. Full disclosure, I have a journalism degree. I also have an African American Studies degree, so I'm very much understanding the journalist to novelist sort of pipeline. And one of the reasons I love journalists to novelists so much is that we tend to be very fixated on details, right? We're chasing a moment in time, we're chasing a person, we're chasing a setting, and we're not gonna let it go until we know everything about that particular thing. And that's what I find when it comes to journalists who are writing about history, or another reason I love narrative nonfiction. So this book is very, very compelling about the march from Selma to Montgomery through the eyes of three people. And what I'll say about this book and Leonard Pitts, he's one of my favorites. Now, this book is a little bit more dialogue heavy than I would have liked or would have preferred, but it doesn't take away from how well done it is, how much history that Leonard Pitts Jr. documented, how much he was able to take us and put us into those 54 miles. So loved it. This I got from the library as well, so it needs to go back. Okay, another book that I ended up just breezing through the stacks is by Paul Marshall. It's called Brown Girl, Brown Stones. And because this is a library, it was a library hold, I don't have access to it anymore. But I was in the stacks after I picking up my hold, saw Daughters, which I still have, and ended up going home and doing some research and realized I probably needed to read Brown Girl, Brown Stones first. And first of all, talk about like connection. I didn't know that Paul Marshall taught at my alma mater and was the first Black woman to get tenure in the English department. Now, another woman, wonderful, one of the best to ever do it writers, actually taught at my alma mater, Marita Golden. I knew about that, but Paul preceded Marita Golden. So I was like, why am I just now getting hooked on Paul Marshall? And especially since, again, I have a journalism and an African American studies degree. I took Black Lit classes at my alma mater, and Paul never came up, and was pretty devastated to learn that. However, because I'm a curious girl, I also did some digging, found that there's a biography, which I am going to read, by Mary Helen Washington. There was a lovely, lovely podcast that Mary Helen Washington did about Paul Marshall. I'm smiling because it was just delightful, like seriously. And this book, Mary Helen Washington describes Brown Girl, Brown Stones as a introduction to feminist literature. And I could absolutely see that. Paul's description of Brooklyn and descriptions of a West Indian family, she was Bayesian, so she absolutely understood, was so eye-opening and so vivid. I am gagged. So I'm definitely going to get through the rest of her catalog this summer, or summer into fall, as well as check out that biography. So that's Brown Girl, Brown Stones. The other book actually was a audiobook called Unreasonable Women: 3 Stories of Violence, Imprisonment, and Extraordinary Survival by Justine Vanderleen. I heard about this book on Tracy's The Stacks podcast. I don't know if you guys listen to that podcast. I love that podcast. I'm not an audiobook girl. Like, I finish very, very few audiobooks. The audiobooks I tend to lean towards, though, tend to be narrative nonfiction narrated by the author. And this was the case for this particular book. But these are compilation of stories from women who are in prison for killing their spouse, lover, boyfriends. And Justine talks about something she calls, I just want to make sure I get this right, criminalized survival, a term that I'd never heard of, and I believe it's a term that she kind of coined, and that the women that she talks about in this book all suffered a lot of violence from their partners. And that violence led up to them feeling unsafe and committing murder. So she walks through 3 different stories, and I was angry and sad the entire time listening. But I think this is an important book, and I can imagine that she's going to win some awards for this book because it was just so good. And journalists, my type of bag. Okay, so those are the 7 books that I have read. Let me make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, those are the 7 books that I have read so far this summer. Let me know how many books you've read so far this summer. What books are your favorite books? What books are you looking forward to for the fall? There are some fall releases. Baby, I cannot wait. which is why I need to get through these books, because I know I'm going to be distracted by all the fall and winter releases coming up, especially for September. But let me show you what I'm currently reading. So I'm currently reading The Great Wherever by Shannon Sanders. And baby, I am hooked. I love me a family saga, okay? I love a family saga. So let me know also if you've read this book or you're planning to read this book, because this is probably going to be one that I'm going to want to talk about. So yeah, well, I'm going to wrap up this vlog, this summer reading check-in vlog. So yeah, let me know what you guys have been reading, how many books you've gotten through so far this summer, what your favorite book is, what's up next for book for you. And yeah, thank you for being here. And if you're new here, hey. If you are returning, hey y'all. Feel free to like, share, drop some chatter in the comments. Talk to me now. And I'll see you guys in the next vlog.
Fragrance, hold up, you ain't never gotta say shit. And I know your taste is a little bit high maintenance. Everybody else basic.